Go. Awesome. So, welcome to today's edition of The Weight Escape. I have Steve Nathenson, a friend of mine. Actually, it's kind of an interesting story because we've known each other for quite a few years now, but yet we've actually never met in person. We were supposed to this summer. We were both signed up to do Ironman Canada, which with COVID-19 has been canceled for this year. So we both have it on the schedule for next year and are really hoping we get that chance to meet in person. But here's to another year of waiting. I love Steve. I couldn't wait to have Steve come on to this Weight Escape Summit because I just feel like personally what he has spoken into my life and the things that he's had me consider through our journey of building businesses. Actually, we've met through Todd Durkin's mastermind program. He's a fitness professional. As you know, I am a fitness professional. And just his approach to working with his clients, his approach to how he treated us in the mastermind, things that he said to me here and there that I wanted to hear and not wanted to hear, but needed to hear in such a loving and amazing way. I felt like I just needed to bring him onto this program and talk about what he's really good at, which is more of the mindset, the coaching, what he has to offer, just such from a place of love. And I really respect and appreciate that as a human being myself. So that being said, Steve, I'd actually love it if you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're passionate about, what your vision is, what you like to give to your clients, because I think it's so important to come from your mouth to really convey who you are.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen. And the feeling is absolutely mutual. And as you could probably tell, the dogs even agreed too. They wanted to come in and be at Ironman Canada as well. And I really appreciate that intro. And it's a great question. You know, there's a couple of things that I really throughout my life have come to realize that I truly am passionate about. And it's an interesting journey that's brought me to where I am today. It's definitely not been kind of like the straight, step-by-step path. And I like to share a little bit about that typically with everyone that I talk to, because it's okay to not take steps forward all the single time, right? And sometimes our journeys take us a couple steps forward, then a couple steps back, then a couple steps forward and a couple steps back. And it could even look like kind of an upward spiral versus straight, but we're always moving forward. It just may look a little wavy at times, right? So, the brief version is I actually started my career as an engineer, and I went to school for engineering because I've got a brain that works that way. My dad, my brother, a lot of people down the line were engineers. So when it came time to go to university and make that decision, I really didn't know what else to do and said, well, my brain works that way. I should probably go and try to pursue that. But I realized throughout school that definitely was not really something that was going to make me happy. But when I was younger, I knew, well, I wanted to get a degree so I could get a job. I want a job so I can make money, and I want to make money because, unfortunately, that's a constraint society has for all of us, right? It's not going away. Whatever that looks like for each of us, we want to be able to support ourselves. And so that was kind of more important versus, am I going to be happy with this? And when I graduated, I knew definitively the answer to that question was no, I would not be happy. So I had to say, well, what's the opposite of engineering? What is it that I don't like about it? Because that was easier for me to figure out what I don't like versus what I actually want to do. And that's kind of a key. Maybe we'll get into it a little bit, but I knew that it was behind a desk, and I definitely didn't want to do that, right? So maybe I wanted something that was out of the office, something that was physical. Engineers are not necessarily known for their people skills or their social ability. So, kind of on the flip side, right? I wanted something that was social. It dealt with people. And one thing I did know actually that I did truly want was something that had huge amount of meaning for me. I knew that was something I needed in that job. So I took some time off to figure out what that was. I arrived upon law enforcement, and specifically the FBI, because of what they stood for, the mission that they have. And at that time, it was important that they were focusing on helping bring to fruition things that needed to happen, I felt, in the States, in our country. So over the next couple of years, I actually worked on my eligibility to be able to apply to the FBI. I applied and got in, and then became a special agent. And during the time that I was there, I specialized in healthcare fraud investigations. I did drug investigations, intellectual property rights. So if you see that little anti-piracy warning on movies. Those are kind of things that we did. But I also had a hand in counterintelligence, counterterrorism, gang investigations, and probably most importantly, child pornography investigations. And I'm very, very thankful for the time that I had in the FBI, what I was able to do there. I'm very proud of everything that I was able to accomplish. But when I got to a certain point in my career and I was working very long hours, it looked like another 7 to 10 years over another 3 to 4 cities for me to get to really wanted to get to within the organization after everything that I had done. And that question then came up again of, is this the right path? Do I need to do something different? What does that look like? And at that time, I actually hired a coach to help me make that decision. I had worked so hard, right, to get into the FBI. I didn't want to just leave if that was not the right thing for me. I needed to truly know what that decision was, what really went into it. And my coach really helped me make that decision. And as you could probably guess, right, and as you know, I am out of the FBI, and I now have my own company for coaching and for speaking. But part of that journey looked like, well, I'm going in a completely different field. How can I set myself up for success in that, right? What background, what education do I need? So I went back to school, got a master's in organization development and leadership, got my professional coaching certificate, got my personal training cert, and then since I've gone on to get 11 more because I can't stop apparently.
Yeah, apparently we
I
have
just
a
love
YouTube for
learning.
that.
Yeah, and I love learning about it, and it's great because it's really created this holistic approach, not just on the actions that we take because we're so action focused, but on what's really underneath that, right? To your point, the mentality, the mindset, things that maybe stand in our way, which we never truly unearth if we're so focused on, well, am I swapping out a bag of potato chips for kale? Or what's maybe triggering me, right, to eat an entire thing of Oreos, which guess what? I did over the weekend. It's fine. It happens. We all do it. It's part of being a human being is I have a sweet tooth, but it's about how do we balance that and how do we create that healthy lifestyle that we're looking for in a way that's actually maintainable and sustainable. So I apologize. Maybe I got off a little topic there, but that's kind of the background in a nutshell.
No, I think that's awesome. Totally awesome.
Yeah.
I love what you said about, how do I set myself up for success? Because sometimes I think we get so focused on what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Sometimes that, like you say, it's that forward steps, but sometimes that backward step, and sometimes taking that step or pause to say, well, how do I do this can be just as important as some of the steps that we're going to take. So I love that comment that you made, and I'm sure you're going to about to say some more about things like that. But I'd love to hear more about your approach with people. I'd love to hear more about, when you have somebody or even yourself, like when you're going to go through these changes or you've decided like, I want to go somewhere. How do I do that? Or where do I start? Or, what, like, what do we do when we get to this point? Because I think sometimes that's where we get overwhelmed because it just,
Yeah.
do this, or I got to do this, or I got to do this. It's just like, well, breathe and call someone like Steve, like you say, a coach, right? A coach we all need them, I think, personally. Like every time I've been stuck in my life, it's been somebody coming into my life or a coach that's really helped me get through. So this is what you do. This is what you become.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a great point, right? And to that point, I have coaches that I talk to on a weekly basis for that as well, right? And I fully believe in it. And for everyone who's watching and listening, one of the things that I just want to say right off the bat is you're not alone. It's a human characteristic for us to get caught in how overwhelming, how big something is. I don't even know where to start or how to even approach this subject. And it creates kind of this sense of overwhelmingness in us. We're stressed. We may not be able to feel like we can concentrate or even making any progress forward because we don't know what that starting point really looks like. And you brought up a great point in there of just kind of breathing. And one thing I talk to people, and I'll hone in on this here for you in a minute, is what calms us down and how to figure that out. So in that moment, when we recognize and we're aware of, I'm getting flustered, maybe Microsoft Excel has shut down on me for the 50th time in an hour. It's a very real example. What do I need to do in that moment to get out of that flustered headspace, to be able to come back to what I'm doing and finish it? And the process that I use as a whole for this is great. Give, recognize, implement, time. And it's a cognitive behavioral approach, if people are familiar with that. And the gist of that methodology, that practice is our actions, our behaviors, they don't stand by themselves. They're not isolated. They're very much tied to all of the parts of us, our behavior and feelings and thoughts, our communication with ourselves, right? The self-talk we have, how we support ourselves. It's all interconnected. And the experiences in our life create these beliefs that we have that could have consequences for us that are not necessarily the ones that we want, and that perhaps hold us back, create those behaviors that we don't necessarily want to engage in. And there is a way to overcome those, to flip those, to embrace it, what is going to help us. So that's really what grit is designed to do. And it all starts with give, which is giving yourself permission to be human, right? It's okay that we have positives and negatives, or what I like to call serving and non-serving. And I flip the verbiage a little bit, because positive, negative, they have these inherent connotations for us already. So when we think about negative, right, what comes up for you? It's bad, it's icky, it shouldn't happen, right? We already kind of get down on ourselves for being in this state, and now we're thinking, well, this is negative. So it's a compounded effect, because man, I'm upset that this happened, and I don't think that I should be this way as well. And it's negative, and now I'm just getting even harder on myself and kind of going down this downward spiral. So lots of things that are kind of in there. One, it's okay to have both sides, right? It alleviates that when this comes up, you know what? It's okay that it comes up, because there is a way forward, a way to overcome it, right? So we have both sides to us, serving and non-serving. You're not alone. We're all in this human condition together. It's okay. There is a way forward. We can embrace what's going to serve us. And the words that we use, the self-talk that we have, plays a major role in how we set our mindset up and how we embrace it's okay to be who we are. And I remember, actually, we were talking recently, I think, on this point of, sometimes we get down on ourselves because maybe we haven't perhaps lost the weight that we've wanted to lose, or we're upset because we think we shouldn't be this way, or even maybe we have other people in our lives that are influencing us negatively, right? And they create that mindset for us that it's not okay. But it's okay. It's okay, absolutely, to be who you are, because you're a human being just like the rest of us. And that's what give really, really means.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we do spend a lot of time getting caught up in who we should be, or what we need to be, or what needs to be done for this situation or this person or this. And it takes us out of alignment with who we are, which then becomes more of a battle, like you say, and then the judgment, and then you're going down and down and down and down, and then it's so much more work to come back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you mentioned judgment, and that's actually a really key piece, right? So we tend to do a comparison between us and other people. Oh, this person has it all together, right? God, why can't I be like John? They've got it all. They've got it all together. They never seem frazzled. They seem confident. Why am I not that way, right? Or, maybe if we're talking about weight, it looks like this comes very natural to somebody to be kind of that shape, or in that type of body. Why can't I be that way? Why am I struggling with it? Or why is it harder for me? But in each of those things, we make an assumption, right? We're making an assumption based on what we're seeing, and we're perceiving versus what perhaps is there.
Sure.
Um, you know, you and I, we do a lot of training for our Ironmans, and people may not actually see that, right? So when you're spending 5 hours on a bike and you're kind of reaping the cardio benefits of it or the health benefits of it week in and week out, there's some things that are going to naturally come across aesthetically, but someone just seeing us on the street or anybody on the street doesn't necessarily know that background, right? So we make this perception and these assumptions that may not always be there, and that's also, I think, a key point in there too. Is
Yeah.
it's a natural thing for us to do that as humans.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
That's totally right. Embarrassing, but totally right.
Well, I know it's okay because it gets back to that point, right? It's we're not alone in it. We all do that. There's not a single one of us on this planet that doesn't share in the
No.
human condition.
No, that's totally true.
Yeah. We just sometimes think that we're alone because it feels that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's hard.
Yeah. And this part, right, I put it first, and I find that it naturally comes first because once we accept that we are human and it's okay for us to be that, we're not alone. There's people out there just like us, just like me, and there are people who can help and guide me. It makes it easier, right, to take those first steps because, in fact, those are some of the first steps, right? They're up here versus physical, but that's the key. Address the underlying mentalities that perhaps stand in our way and limit us versus serving us and helping us get to where we want to go. And the key there is we always have that choice. And that's the recognize piece. Recognize we always have a choice. Even when we don't see one, it's always there. We always have that choice. And we can embrace what serves us instead of allowing what doesn't serve us to bring us down that downward spiral we were talking about earlier. Even if maybe in the moment the non-serving comes out, guess what? As we talked about, right? That's okay. Let it come out because once it's surfaced, I can recognize that it's there. I can embrace that it's a part of me. And then I can actively choose to do what I need to do to get back into that right space and mentality to embrace the serving and take the steps towards what I want. I do this all the time, honestly, with my dogs. They never get past a certain mentality, right? And I often have to find myself going, you know what? Hey, man, they don't understand, right? They don't understand that dogs don't win versus cars. And so yeah, I don't need them to run into the street, right? And I've got to make sure that I have the leash and they don't get hit because I kind of love my little ones. But to that point, right, it's I'm flustered, but you know what? You don't understand. And that's why we have leashes. That's why, right? I'm protecting you. And I need that moment to get into that space to be able to recognize that, you know what? Yes, this is a function of who they are and just kind of mentality, where they are, where the developmental level is. And it's the same thing with us for what we eat, how we exercise. Maybe it's been a very long day. All I want to do is sit in the couch and veg out, but I have that choice and I can make that choice. And part of that is believing that we actually have the capability within us to make those choices. What experiences in our lives actually showcase the strengths that we have, what we've used to overcome obstacles or hurdles or challenges before? Because guess what? We've all done it. We've all, in certain parts, right, have overcome something in our lives. And what we've done there may have been a different situation, but those tools that we use, the way that we did it, it's applicable here too. It's just a little bit of a different situation, but the same tools and skills that we use there will help us now. And that belief, that confidence in ourselves plays a major role in being able to actively choose what's going to serve us and help us get to where we want to go.
I like that. I think sometimes we get caught up and so focused on what we haven't done, we forget that we've overcome things before. I think that's a really
Absolutely right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's tunnel vision. So focused on the present that we forget that our past often provides the keys to getting to where we want to go in the future.
Hmm, that's good. I like that. I gotta write that one down. Gotta write that one down.
Yeah.
Keep that. That's really good.
Yeah.
Keep that.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said I personally just really like that. I kind of have your own moments when you're doing these things. Yeah, no, I have done stuff in the past. Why am I not? How come I'm not able to acknowledge that or see that or yeah?
And that's, you mentioned, right, working with a coach, there's certain exercises that are associated with each part of kind of where somebody is, right, that can help bring out uh, the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors, perhaps right now that don't serve me. Well, similar to my story, and I promised I would relate it back, right, when I was trying to figure out what is it that I want to do. Well, I know engineering is not what I want, and I don't like this. It's often easier for us to say, I don't like this
Right.
versus I like this, or I don't want this versus I want this, right? That's a hard question to answer. What is it that I want? A lot of I don't knows, and that's okay. And so if you flip it, knowing what you don't want, well, guess what? We know what we don't want. We know how to write opposites. So we can start crafting from what's easier for us to say or think and make it something that is tangible for what we want to achieve from the non-serving to the serving. And for the experience piece and the confidence, I find, and this is very true in coaching in a lot of aspects of life, right? We have these sayings of stop and smell the roses for kind of a reason. And it's the same thing too with our past. Unless somebody maybe actively forces us to kind of reflect back upon our past or experiences and really dive into them, we don't necessarily do what we were talking about, right? Where we say, oh yeah, you know what, I have done this in the past and I am capable of doing it again because guess what? I've done it before.
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit of that guidance to your point, right? Of exploring that kind of thoughtfully and purposefully to help bring that out, right? To know that we are capable of doing it and that we can make that choice to embrace what serves us.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely good reflection. Because you're right, it is. It's easy to say, yeah, no, I don't want that, or I don't want, or I don't want, or like with the weight, I don't want to carry the weight. I don't want to be unhealthy. I don't want to be facing type 2 diabetes. I don't want to be, you know, but it's hard, like you say, it's how do you flip that into what do I do want? I do want to be around for my kids. I do want, to feel better about myself. I do want. And then you can start, okay.
Yeah. And the other thing too, and specifically getting into the weight piece of it is there may be things in my past and my experiences that actually give me light on why I behave or eat a certain way or the habits that I have. And, and maybe, maybe I grew up in a household with 5 kids. And if you didn't dive in first and scarf down the food, maybe you didn't get enough. Maybe
Right.
that leads me to eat more now. And because I have that mentality that's born from my experiences, or maybe it's a comfort food mentality, and that's one actually I think I've run across quite a bit too. Is there's certain comforts we find in certain foods, or man, what's one more? This tastes really good, right? I can grab it. And what's really led to those, as far as coaching goes, coaching is very future and present focused, little less than in the past focus, but knowing what we've gone through and the experiences can really kind of shed a light of where does that belief come from. And once I understand perhaps where it comes from and is it leading to something that actually serves me or non-serving, then I can make that decision of how do I start to address it? What's going to motivate me? What inspires me? What am I really called to do? And maybe that's a little bit general, but what's the real true purpose and intention behind, say, my weight loss for me? And that's what the implement step really gets into is, Implement's about creating small wins through small steps that build momentum to eventually lead you to where you want to go, right? You're laying that foundation upon which success is built. And knowing what is going to drive me to take those steps, the motivation, the inspiration, the purpose behind it, what desires do I really have? That is a key piece of helping us actually stay focused to take those steps, to really want to engage in that process, to take the step versus letting that little voice in the back of our head say, "Oh, I'm gonna eat that whole bag of Oreos tonight," um, over and over again, right? That's the thing, is we have those voices that we can choose to overcome, embrace the serving voice, knowing that maybe there's a wedding 3 months down the road, and my motivation is for me to be in this kind of tux and look this kind of way in front of my family. Or to your point, a very strong motivator, maybe I had a heart attack and I want to be around for my kids and I want to be around for my grandkids. That is what truly helps us take those steps, knowing the value in them and the payoff.
Mm.
And we're so focused on action in this country, we very rarely actually take a step back to understand what is it that's going to help me take action by knowing, right, the underlying mentalities, but also what is the right action for me to take. Am I taking too much? Am I taking too little? Right? We hear it all the time. Diets fail, and diet even has a connotation to it where I've got to go on a diet. I've got to change the way that I eat. Technically, everything that we eat, it's all a diet, right? Just what we put in our bodies is actually falling within the scope of a diet. But it has now a non-serving connotation because now I've got to limit the food, or I've got to eat things that I don't like in order to get to where I want to be. And that I found is a huge key in, instead of just changing everything at once because I'm trying to eat the elephant all at once, small steps. And that's what I found the most success in. And actually, maybe this is a good time to kind of illustrate with a client that I had.
Yeah.
This client and I were actually brought together through a coaching contract. It was not around fitness. It was not around weight loss. But as we talked about what coaching could do and what it was open to for them, we really actually got into, the thing that they wanted to work on the most was losing weight.
Hmm.
And through coaching and talking about those past experiences, talking about the mentalities from their childhood, talking about what they have tried and that didn't work, a couple things that honestly came out was, I never thought that it was possible to do it. And I'll never forget the first time that we met, because it was really was truly like a very emotional meeting, because in that first time that we met, they realized that it was actually perhaps for the first time possible to lose the weight, because we had tried so many different ways that didn't work. And all those ways, those fad diets or the things that they had tried, didn't hit the underlying mentality or give them the confidence and belief that they were able to actually go on this journey to lose it. And we were able, throughout the time that we worked together, lose 30 pounds, maintain that weight off, even during the most stressful part of the year for them in their job. And I'm blanking on the amount of time that we actually had together. I want to say it was around 5 months or so that I think that we worked together. And to this point, even now that we're done working and our contract's over, they're still doing very well and maintaining the things that we talked about. But we really dug into the mentality piece, small steps. We're not changing everything at once. You like to eat this? That's okay. Maybe we start with, let's eat a little bit less of it. Or maybe there's small things that we can do organizationally to help. Am I planning my meals out maybe the day before, or packing a little bit of a healthier snack? So when I'm rushing out the door in the morning, I've got something ready to go, right? I've set myself up for success to take these steps instead of trying to change it all at once, instead of eating nothing but salad and greens and lemon juice as your dressing, instead of, right, maybe an actual actual dressing on your salad, when I'm eating the complete opposite of it, right? That's kind of a recipe of disaster, because we're, for a couple of reasons, right? If we're putting our body in starvation mode, if we cut too many calories at once, right, and we're going to rebound after that. If we change too many of the things that we're eating at once, we'll also rebound because we haven't actually changed in a way that works for us. And that's the important piece in all of coaching is, I'm never going to sit here and say, Jen, you've got to do 1, 2, and 3. Because if I do that and 1 works great, 2 works okay, but you get to 3 and be like, yeah, so that didn't work. And I don't think we're going to talk again because I really didn't enjoy that. It didn't help. It wasn't worth it. And my relationship with you can break down because I'm saying, Jen, you've got to do this, versus, Jen, what's right for you? What are those actual steps? What are the things that we can start shifting and changing? And while my education and background may come into the conversation, it's always going to be up to you, right, to make that choice of what's going to serve you and what that right small step is to start building that momentum.
I love what you say, because I just, even listening, I feel so disarmed. It's not like you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta. It's just, no, like, take it down. And, what is that choice? What is this? And, like you say, talking about some of that reflection and figuring out what works for you, because, like, we know what works for you isn't going to work for me. And we've had the joy of talking about this, about our training. I mean, we have the same goal. Some of the pieces are the same, but we both have slightly different ways of getting there. And you know what? They're both getting us where we're going.
Right.
And that, I think that's the joy of coaching too, is we get to let individuals be individuals. And it's, acknowledging it's okay to be yourself, and that, what works for me doesn't work for you. And that's okay. And, I'm sure you've come across it too, but even being okay as a client to say, I'm going to try something and it may not work. And that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, so what's the choice then? Like, it's no big deal. Let it go, move, keep going.
And I love that you brought that up, because we don't, well, I won't qualify with like always and never, right? And there's not like all or nothing. But a lot of times the experiences in our lives that actually teach us more are the ones that maybe we would have liked to have done better. Maybe the ones that didn't work out for us. Maybe the ones that we don't have the greatest memories of. They are more often than not the impetus to actually create the change that we seek, the ones that drive us to learn, to get better. And that's one thing that honestly, I actually think, maybe stop me if there's too much of a tangent, but TV movies get right. We see this all the time in stories where, for whatever reason, a kid in high school is bullied or mistreated. And since we're talking about weight, I know that's a common thing that we see actually in movies, right? Is the overweight kid gets bullied. And then you see in the movies, just like a lot of people actually know in real life, right, that really served as the impetus to truly make that change in life, to protect us, to not get hurt again. Because of those experiences, we've now made those active choices to be who we are today. And hindsight is 2020, and maybe things would have gone the same, maybe they wouldn't have, but without those experiences being a part of who we are, would that drive still be the same? Would we still have gotten to where we are? And so I love that you brought that out, because it is okay to take those missteps, right? Yeah. Again, our journey is not a straight line. It goes in waves and up and down, but it's all leading to that higher point.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I just know personally, for me, when I stopped judging the missteps and actually just saw them as learning points, it was big difference. And it doesn't mean I'm, falling back and now I can start again on Monday. It's Tuesday afternoon, so let's just wait till Monday. How many times have we gotten into that pattern? Or just, like you hear quotes about it, fall down 7 times, get up 8. But it's like, yeah, it's about taking those missteps and being okay with them. more about getting everything perfect. But
Yeah.
as humans, we get stuck on the perfect.
Right. Right. And you know what? I mean, I think about this all the time. Let's just say by magic tomorrow I'm interviewed on TV for, I don't know, whatever whatever reason why that would happen. I don't know, but I think about that a lot. If I would ever get that asked that question, like on a national stage or a global stage, is, you know, it's okay to be imperfect. And I am never going to purport to somebody that I am perfect because of this, right? I find the greatest learnings come from things that I wish I would have done better or maybe did not work out. For me, that's the greatest learnings. And if we don't go through that journey, we don't necessarily get to where we are in terms of the kind of person that we are, maybe the compassion we have, the kindness that we have for ourselves, giving ourselves permission that it's okay to take those missteps, giving ourselves permission even to say, you know what, I've been going very hard at this for a month now. I need to reset. I need to relax. I need to rest, especially in our Ironman training, right? The whole month of June for me this year was a rest month because I had built so far up past where I had been previously last year that I broke my body down enough and it said, all right, bud, let's take a step back and let's actually take a rest month, not even a rest week or 2 weeks, because I tried that, but I was listening to my body, right? Very much being in tune with it. And it's the same thing as we're eating. Let's say we're cutting weight through a cut in calories, just taking the exercise component out of it for a moment.
Yeah.
When we perhaps are cutting too many calories, we can get irritable, we can snap, short-tempered, we can get lightheaded. There's a lot of maybe non-serving things that can come with too much of a cut too consistently, and allowing ourselves to listen to our bodies because they're very good at telling us, hey, you need to feed me maybe a little bit more, level off and reset. And even maybe I've lost 25 pounds and now I don't find that I'm losing anymore, but I'm still doing the same thing. What's going on? Your bodies need that physical reset, right? That time to adjust, get back to equilibrium, and allow ourselves to then stress it and tax it in a different way to see that
Mhm.
growth, whether it's change in eating or right physical exercise, always kind of that increased stress and overload of it. And that's actually, just make sure I kind of round out grit for us, that's the last piece of it is time. We don't change instantaneously as human beings. Time is a huge part of the process of change. And if you think about it this way, let's say this is a neural pathway in my brain. So if we just picture our brain's got all these little lightning rods in it, when I say I'm driving a car, right, all these little lightning rods are going off because we have our kind of mental thoughts and our behaviors physically associated with each other. And those are our neurons in our brains lighting up and saying, hey, I'm thinking this, do this, right? Do this motion. So 30 years of maybe doing something has physically ingrained this neural pathway very strongly in my brain. When that's there, all these habits, maybe right from when I'm younger, maybe I had to fight for my food and I savor what I eat and maybe led me to eat more. Maybe 30 years of doing that has ingrained this very solidly. And if I want to change that, not only do I have to build this new one, but I also have to combat this one. So it takes literally time to shift while I'm growing this neural pathway to be stronger through the what I'm using to actual engage in it, the behaviors. And then as I engage in this behavior less and less, this gets weaker. And eventually this becomes the one that's in the background, very weak, and the one that you wanted to really embrace becomes the one that's firmly implanted and our new way of being. And it's okay if this one now and again maybe rears its head and pops up now and again, because it's going to be much easier to get back to this new way. But that's the important piece, is it literally takes time for us to change as human beings. And with everything as accessible as it is in our world today, with 1 or 2 day shipping, with on demand
Right?
smartphones, right? Global access, there's so many things that have taught us and ingrained in us that I want it now. I want it instantaneously, but we just don't work that way as human beings. So time really is kind of that last key to grit, and accepting, embracing that it takes time for us to truly change as human beings.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way you described it because, as you said earlier, like we're taught things in the past. Like you say, if you've got that family of 5 kids and maybe food wasn't quite as abundant as you would have liked it to be, you learn how to eat really fast, but then you keep building on that pathway, and then all of a sudden, it's not serving you anymore. And I love that terminology because now it's not, oh, that's a bad pattern. That's just a pattern that's not serving me. And I can trace it to why. And
Yeah.
now it's actually easy to see it as, okay, well, what is something I could do that will serve me more? And it isn't about this bad, this good. It's this just isn't serving me the way it used to. The purpose has changed. And so how do I now shift that into something that's more serving? And it doesn't have that negative, like you said earlier, it doesn't have that negative feeling or that, judgmental, oh, I'm doing it wrong or I can't do it right. It's just, oh, well, that was a pattern that I learned for a very good reason.
Yeah.
I just don't need that pattern anymore because that reason is no longer existent, but my pathways haven't seen that yet.
Right.
So yeah, I love that concept because then it just takes that personal piece out of it, right? Like I didn't do anything wrong. It's something that I learned and there was a reason for it. Just that
Yeah.
reason's not here anymore.
Yeah. And, again, great illustration of, right, I'm upset because I did something and now I think it's wrong. And now I'm even more upset with myself, right? When you understand and give yourself permission to be who you are and be a human being, you do start to lessen that. And this whole process, it takes time to really embrace it, to work on it, and to get to a point where we are what I call enlightened, and I'll explain because it's a little different for me. The typical thing I think of when we talk about enlightenment is, right, this monk walking down the street that's kind to everybody, never gets upset. You can't maybe get a reaction out of them. Very similar to what like the guards at Buckingham Palace, right?
Yes.
The infamous soldiers that just stand there blank faced. For me, enlightenment, it's not that. I feel like those images of enlightenment really do kind of cut out a part of who we are and deny part of being human beings, because guess what, we do have those non-serving sides. And it's okay that maybe I walk down the street and maybe I'm still on my journey and I catch a reflection and I have a non-serving thought, right? Or maybe I see somebody else and I make an assumption or a presumption and I have that non-serving thought or that judgment. It's okay because it's part of who we are. What really matters is, what do we do next? How do we let go of that judgment, right? And it's through that process of embracing, it's okay to have things, letting them come out, and then choosing, because we always have that choice, to embrace the serving and then actually taking the steps to lessen that judgment and let it go and pass, right? I don't believe that it's never there. I think if we try to strive for having something that's never a part of us, it is denying a part of who we are. And so that's kind of just maybe a quick uh, illustration of, I think, what my version of perhaps enlightenment is, which I think is fully kind of what you get from this process, that mindfulness, that acceptance of who we are, and being able to let go of judgments when they arise versus never being judgmental, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think I heard somebody once explain enlightenment of, we have this course of a journey in our lives and we have those moments, like we were just talking about, where it's like, oh, that's not serving me anymore. And it's like that light bulb moment. And
Yeah.
I had a picture once painted to me by somebody that was like, life is just those series of light bulb moments. And it's those enlightening pieces that get us closer to where we want to go. And I was just like, wow, that's actually beautiful. Like, how is it lighting your path? Because you have this path that you're on. And every time one of those lights up, you're getting a little closer to where you want to go. And I just thought that was a beautiful, beautiful illustration of kind of like, don't feel like you have to be at the end, because the journey is just as rewarding and the journey is just as exciting and the journey is just as positive when you have those moments of, oh, this actually isn't what I've made it to mean. This is actually something that isn't personal or isn't going to destroy me or isn't something I need to be stuck in, or whatever that is for somebody.
And it's such a beautiful point in there. And I'm picturing little light bulbs behind you as you're talking too, by the way, like a little path of light bulbs for you. Um, it's a great illustration because your journey through this, your journey through everything else that we've done in life, they're not just applicable to this one specific instance, right? Every journey that you go through makes you stronger because now I have this to rely upon and leverage for the next thing that I want to overcome. And I feel the greatest illustration that maybe I can kind of put out there is we often think that so many things are impossible. They're out of reach. Um, and we talk about goals and we talk about stretch goals, right? Something that I've got to reach for. But as we go through this process and we really harness in that mentality that's truly going to help us stay focused, overcome, and achieve the success we're looking for, we start to realize that maybe I was here and now I'm here. And guess what? This that we wanted right here, now it's right within reach. And
Yeah.
we are capable of getting it, right? Once what was once seemingly impossible is now possible and within our reach.
Love that. Love that. So I'd love it if you don't mind just going through those four again. So if anybody was kind of taking notes, I know it was beautiful the way it just kind of went into each other, but just to back that up. And then again, like just quickly, if you would let our listeners know like how they can work with you, because I mean, I know how valuable you are personally. I'm glad that I actually kind of get to have you in my life. We will, make sure there's a link and stuff for it for everybody with the video, but just, on a personal note, like how we can work, how they can
Yeah.
work with you.
Yeah. So great questions. For grit, it was give, recognize, implement, time.
Right.
And just briefly, give is giving yourself permission to be human, right? We all have those ups and downs. It's okay because we're not alone and there is a way forward. Recognize is about recognize we always have that choice. We can either let what doesn't serve us kind of keep us down, stuck in that downward spiral, or we embrace what does serve us and help us get to where we want to go. Implement is all about small steps, which create small wins, and then build that momentum to create the success that we're seeking. And time literally is about giving ourselves the time to change that we need to change as human beings. And it's okay to take time and that it doesn't happen instantaneously. So that's what grit is. Grit is give, recognize, implement, time.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sometimes when you hear it, it's like, this is what we're going to talk about. Then you get into it. It was like, what was that again? So
Right, that's fair. Fair
love to
point.
just have that come back.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Yeah. So I think the second part, right, was how to get in touch with me. I believe you
Yeah.
asked. Yeah. So I love hearing from people. I am on social media, so you can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. My company is Strive for More, and that for is FOR, the word. So Strive for More. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all if you look for Strive for More LTD, which is limited, that's the company. You can find me on social media. If you want to get a hold of me through email, I'd love to hear from you. And that's steve@striveformore.com. And then the website, of course, is www.striveformore.com. So lots of different ways to kind of get connected and reach out to me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And by the way, I wanted to let you know that I really enjoy having you in my life as well. And one of these days, Canada, Ironman Canada is going to happen.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Oh, I almost forgot. And I apologize. If you reach out to me and mention the Weight Escape,
Right.
I would be more than happy to actually give a couple of free months on some packages. So 1 free month off 6 months, 2 free months off of 12 months is what I love to do for your listeners.
Awesome. I love that. No, it's valuable. I mean, you can't, yeah. It just, you don't know what's going to come up until you start. And I think that's the fun part about it too, is that you become aware of things that you didn't know. And, you actually see more good in yourself than you think is there sometimes working with a coach, and it makes those pieces and those steps just a little easier, a little more manageable, a little bit more digestible. No pun intended with the weight issue, but yeah, I mean, having a coach, having someone willing to come alongside you and walk you through some of those blind spots or pieces that you don't know is so rewarding. So rewarding.
Yeah.
So rewarding. Awesome. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. And I don't mind if you reflect back. I know you talked about your career change.
Yeah.
But if there was a point in your life where that goal that just seems so big and almost unimaginable, but you got there. So you can use the career part if you want, or you don't have to if there's something else. But the Steve that's sitting here today, if you could go back and talk to that Steve, what would you tell him now? From, getting through that. I'm polite about putting you on the spot.
That's a really great question. And to touch on the career thing, the time that I went into the FBI, I think there was less than 1% of the applicants actually got in and became special agents.
Oh, wow.
So it was very, very daunting. And I don't know. I have to think back on the mentality. Like, I think I was so driven by I don't want to be an engineer anymore that I think unbeknownst to me at that time, right, kind of went through some of these elements of grit to say, you know what, I know exactly what the purpose is behind doing this. And because of that, I'm going to do whatever I can to set myself up for success. So I think in that transition, I was so driven that I don't know if I was necessarily overwhelmed by it, but I can definitely tell you that my Ironman journey is different. I remember standing in line for my first half Ironman going, what the heck am I doing here? You want me to swim 1.2 miles, bike 56 miles, and then run a half marathon? Like, are you nuts? I want to get out of this line. I clearly remember thinking about that. And for me, actually, to get to the starting line of my first Ironman was literally a 5-year journey. And that, I think, is actually a great illustration of what you're talking about, because it is so daunting to think about each of those elements in and of itself for the swim, right? The 2.4 mile swim, the 112 mile bike, and then the full marathon. If you haven't even done any of those, I mean, just like marathon is a little bit more common, right, than these races are. But that's daunting in and of itself of, God, that's a lot of time out there. And it took me 5 years to do it because of injury, not believing that I was capable of doing it. Is my body ever going to be okay or allow me to go that kind of distance? I mean, those were some great questions that I was facing. And that was too overwhelming, definitely for a long time. And actually, Frank, I'm going to butcher his last name, but Puker, I believe, is the proper pronunciation. Yes, got it right. Hope you're proud of me. That it took him to say, hey, I'm going to do this, for me to go, okay, I'm going to do this with Frank and hold myself accountable. It took that other person to make me kind of believe that this was possible for me to do it. And if I were to talk to myself back then, I think some of the key things I would say is, just like in everything in life that's so overwhelming and such a big, daunting task, when we break it up into the smaller, digestible, manageable things, it's very easy to start checking off those small steps and seeing the possibilities, because it's now very manageable versus too large. And that's definitively one of the first things that I would talk to myself about, is how to break it up into these manageable chunks that I know I'm capable of doing and that I've done before and that I can do again, and then start growing from there. I think that's one of the biggest things probably I would say to myself. And it is possible. Look at how many other people are doing it. Look at how many other people every single day transform themselves, whether that's physically or mentally. it is absolutely possible. And stop me from going too far down
No,
a
it's
tangent, but I think when we don't, one of the greatest things that somebody can do when we don't believe in ourselves is believe in us. Because having that person that believes in us allows us to start building that belief in ourselves. And I think that is one of the most powerful things that somebody can do for another person, especially when we may have people in our lives who tell us, you'll never be able to do that. It's not possible. Why do you want to do that? Brings such negativity, right? That it's a choice of who we surround ourselves in and finding that person that builds us up and helps us build ourselves up. I would say find those people too.
love that. Well, it always makes me wonder, like, I know we met each other through the mastermind, but how well would we know each other had we not had that shared goal?
Yeah,
It's really the Ironman journey that's really brought us,
that's true.
close as friends too, right? It's letting
Yeah,
each other in, and it's like, oh, Steve's, way over on the other side of the not continent, country, but in a different country, doing what I'm doing here, right? And it's just like knowing someone's on a journey too for themselves, but that's similar to mine, and I've got them there. So,
yeah, yeah. Well,
awesome.
thank you, Jen. This has been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed talking with you today.
Good. I'm so glad you made time for us because it was great. Like I said, you've always speak something special to me, and I think I got just as much out of it interviewing you as I hope our listeners did.
Thank
So, but yes,
you.
we will have your information, contact information, website, all included in the email that's going out with this video, so people can totally reach out to you, and
Excellent.
I hope they do because you have a wealth of information out there. So
Thank you.
thank you for your time. We'll say goodbye. And, I really encourage all of you, reach out to Steve. Like, he's awesome. He's just incredible. Even if you're not sure where to start, reach out and just say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I need. This is what I don't know what I need. And take that first step and chat with him, see what he's got to say.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you.
take care. Stay healthy, Steve. And we'll catch up.
All right. I will, and you do the same.
Thanks.